on in. Right.
I love the music, Gene. Thank you.
My very life today. I don't get some shelter. Yes, I'm gonna pay your way. Children, it's just a shadow. It's just a shadow. Oh, children, it's just a shadow. It's just a shadow. Oh, see the fire is sweeping all very streets today.
Welcome again, everyone. We're just giving a few minutes for people to get in the room and get settled. All right, I think it's slowing down just a bit as far as people coming into the space. So why don't we go ahead and get started? My name is Christiana Rhodes. I'm the Wraparound and System of Care Coordinator with Oregon Health Authority. I use she, her pronouns, and I am going to be kind of supporting us in the start of this conversation today. We have had a change in presenters, and so just wanted to share with you all that Gene Tagaban is here now from the Native Wellness Institute in lieu of Jeline, and we welcome you, Gene. So Gene is going to be talking to us about being a Native, an ally in Indian country. So welcome, Gene. Thank you so much for being here. One of the things we've talked about is that Gene loves questions, and he'll tell you a little bit more about that. But we want this to be an open conversation and open dialogue throughout the course of our time together. So Gene, welcome. I'll let you take over and share a little bit about yourself. Thanks for being here.
Right on. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Thumbs up or give me some kind of signal or something. And it would be helpful too if any of you could just like have your cameras on too, so I could just see you. Even if you're like, you might be like multitasking at the same time, that's fine. But it's just it's always good to see people's faces and see who's on in the space here. Yeah. Awesome. So cool. So welcome to this this space this afternoon in this moment here, and one reason I asked you to come on too is just I'm going to start off. I'm just going to sing a little song, and what that does, it actually helps me just to get present and get in the moment here as well, because I've been out doing things and I've been running around and I actually just got recovered from COVID too, which was a drag. Yeah, it's still out there, man. It's still out there lurking around. So be careful and take care of yourselves too. Yeah, Christina. Yeah, it's and it just hit me unexpectedly. And I was spent all last weekend instead of facilitating for a group. I was stuck in my hotel room, man. Anyways, hang on. Had to get a stick. And so what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to sing a little song here. And as I sing this song, just to get us started, I'm just going to ask you to think about the land of your ancestors, wherever that may have been. Maybe it's maybe it was there's water there. Maybe there's a river. Maybe there's a lake. Maybe there's oceans there. Maybe there's mountains. Maybe it's flat. What did the trees look like? What did the forests look like? I'm taking a look at John's background there. I love the forests, and I come from Alaska originally, in the rainforest of Southeast Alaska. I see the northern lights behind Carly. Yeah, and I grew up with those northern lights as well, and they've been out lately in force. And so that's the land I grew up, but also you'll hear more about my introduction of where I came from. But think about the land. You can imagine this area, even the place that you're at, before there are buildings, before there are any of that stuff, the original inhabitants, and the original inhabitants might have been just the animals themselves. And, it might have been just totally forested. Just to bring to your imagination, your creative imagination, your intelligent imagination, that place and that time. And maybe some of you may not know where you came from or your ancestry, because as within Native people or Indigenous people, we always say are the stolen generations, and those who have been stolen, taken from their lands, and they don't know who their ancestry is. So I'm going to ask you to think about a sunrise or sunset. How many of you love sunrises and sunsets? I know I do. My backyard faces directly east, and so I can just go out there and know that the sun is coming up. One of my favorite sights is a full moon at nighttime in scattered clouds. I love that imagery, and just the reflection on the clouds and through the clouds too. Think about the sound of the waves or the river lapping on the shores, or the sound of a hummingbird, eagles or ravens, or the coyote. I love those images, and one of the things coming fall time here is like the falling leaves and the dancing of the wind that go through the tree, and then the reflection of the shadows on the ground. I really love that imagery. Yeah, those dancing trees, those dancing leaves, and this time of year. This is one of my favorite times of year, is the autumn, I guess they call it, or the fall. But think about those things, because if you don't know the land of your ancestors and you want to get connected to ancestry, just go and stand outside and think about those things, because those are things that all of our ancestors experienced. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, native, whoever you are. All of our ancestors experienced those things. Yeah. And so think about that, and just take yourself to that place, and just take a moment out of your day. You may have been busy, looking at that screen all day, as we're doing right now, and you might have been busy during that whole time, but just take a moment just for yourself to take yourself to that imagination, that place of ancestry, or a place in nature that just gives you that peace of mind, whatever that is. And just take that moment as I sing the song, and just listen to this. Oh, awesome. I was playing on this drum I made probably years ago now. I just keep it around. Anyways, so that's something that my elders and my ancestors told me too, is like capture that moment, because especially in the days of today, this this high-paced world that we live in, this Western society, and that we're involved in now, we just need to take time for ourselves, just take a moment. And that's all we did, was take a moment. And my ancestors always say, just capture that moment. So when things get too stressful, things get too overwhelmed, or things just start sucking, because sometimes life just sucks, right? Just go like this. It does. Yeah. Yeah. Just take a moment and take a breath and capture that moment wherever you are. Maybe you saw a sunrise, maybe you were in the forest or wherever you went to. Some of you were even still working. You take that moment, because in this world that we live in, we have a hard time just taking a time out, right? Yeah. And so you deserve, and give yourselves that moment and give yourselves that time out. Yeah. So with that too, I just want to introduce myself, and you can put your introductions in the chats too. And when I say introductions, I was taught that one of the most important things that you could do in your life is learn how to introduce yourself. We're always introducing ourselves, always, wherever we go, without even saying a word. You haven't even said a word to me, and I haven't read the chats or anything like that. But each of you have already introduced yourself just by what your screen, who you are, how you look, your backgrounds, what you're wearing. We're always introducing ourselves. And it was my great grandmother who told me, said, always represent not just yourself, but you represent your family, your clan, your tribes, your peoples. You might be the only native or Indian anyone ever meets, so you got to hold yourself in a good way. Always remember that. You're always representing somebody. And listen to this, grandson. Always wear clean underwear too. Okay? Okay, now go get me a cup of coffee. Yeah, I don't know which one was more important there. So I was like, but I do keep that piece of wisdom in mind all the time. So, how do you introduce yourself when you walk into the room? Who walks with you into the room? Who walks with you into the room? How many of you believe in ancestry? Yeah. Ancestors walk with us in the room. In fact, that's a fundamental indigenous Aboriginal tribal belief system. And the ancestors. And I just want to say too that if you go back far enough in our ancestry, in our heritage, we all come from a place of tribes. We all come from the land. We all come from the earth. And so part of who walks with you is like those ancestors, if that's your belief system. And whoever walks with you into the room also are your beliefs and your values. What are those belief systems, those value systems that walk with you into the room? Have you ever heard this here phrase that our minds shape our world? Our minds shape our world. In fact, as adults right now, our mind is shaping our world that we live in. Just take a look around you. Your office space, your home space, everything. Your mind shaped that space, that world. Your mind shaped everything that you're wearing, and when you look, your mind is shaping that. But our mind shaped our world, but the world shaped our mind. And that's from 0 to 5 years old, the development of our system. From 0 to 5 years old, the world is shaping our mind. And we carry those belief systems, those values of how the world has shaped our mind into our adulthood, and then our mind starts shaping our world. So when I'm saying, how do you introduce yourself? Who walks with you into the room? What belief systems walk with you into the room? What value systems walk with you into the room? And this is just an awareness, because some of those belief systems and value systems work for you right now. They're still working for you. And some of them just don't serve you anymore. Like I grew up with this system that, I work a lot with men, the wellness of men, the enrollment of men, and getting men involved in the healing, the health, and the stop of the violence, the hurt and harm and that. But that's a whole nother topic, unless, of course, it's not. And so part of the belief system I grew up with is that men don't cry. And as I was growing up, it kind of served me when I was younger, but as I got older, it just didn't serve me anymore, because I was holding stuff in and that those things too, and it just didn't serve me. And so I had to adjust my belief system and my value systems. I had to start becoming more emotionally intelligent, and so that's So what about you? And what I'm talking about in this moment, I only got you for like an hour and a half, if that, right? And so for just this moment, and that's all it is, it's just a moment in our life story. Our life story is made up of moments. And it's those moments that really determine how we view the world. And so who walks with you into the room as well are your moments or your stories that you reflect on, that help you determine and make sense of the world that we live in. And again, our life story is made up of moments. So all we have here is just a moment in this hour and a half with me, or with each other, actually. And this moment will never, ever happen in the existence of this universe, unless you believe in alternative things, but that's a whole nother workshop. And maybe we might go there or not, depending on your questions. And so your moments also walk with you into the room, your belief systems, your value systems, your moments. But who else walks with me into the room is my gender. Yeah, people see me and they see that. My skin color walks with me into the room. Yeah, my age now, I'm not a young man. I used to be a young man. I started this work when I was like, my hair was black and I had less wrinkles. I had more of my teeth and the rocks were soft. Yeah. So I've been doing this work for a while now. And so my age walks with me into the room, and whatever I'm wearing too. If I was wearing a suit, that would walk with me into the room. Also, if I was wearing a uniform, that would walk with me into the room as well. So when you're introducing yourself, who walks with you into the room? What is that? And all this is happening even before you even say a word, even before you share your voice. And whoever walks with you in the room, and that's you. But when you walk into the room, you're also making a judgment of who's in the room, who's in the space. That depends on what filter we're looking at. Oftentimes within the Native Wellness Institute, we talk about, are we looking through the world through our trauma filter or our healing filter? And our trauma filter usually comes all jacked up with all kinds of biases, racisms, and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And we're just looking at the world through our trauma filter, a lot of fears, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depressions, whatever it is. But our healing filters, we're looking at the world through more of openness, yeah. And so how do you see the world through our trauma filter or our healing filter? And how do you determine who's in the room too? And so there's all these things as part of our introduction. And I'm saying this before I've even said my name. You guys, Christiana, she said my name, but that's it. I'm just some Indian dude who's like came out here and start jabbering away, man. And so how do you introduce yourself? And it's really something to think about. And, even when you walk into the room, how many of you have children? Yeah. How many have children? Yeah. Yeah. Because it's interesting because kids, whenever they go to school, and especially they're younger, sometimes they'll go to school and then they come back home that afternoon, they're a whole different person, right? Yeah. You're like, oh, who the heck came back from school today? Yeah. And basically they're reintroducing themselves because they're growing so fast. So you need to how do you reintroduce yourself to your children, even to your family, to your spouse, whoever it is, or to your dog? Yeah. So how do you introduce yourself? And really think about that. So one of my introductions to how I introduce myself is Gaya Yahakto Asok Doktain Tana Kakita Kakando Akhutiti. Which Katanyari Akat, how easy to hear you do yourself to get the way we are slag if Filipino Conastis, away a higher idea, Conastis, who's cool, the Dukunuku, let's see, Conastis, ho, 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 ho. So I just said hi. And that's how we say hello as Native people, Indigenous, Aboriginals, tribal people. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we're all tribal people. And I actually do a whole workshop on how to introduce ourselves. I work with corporations and organizations where because we're more than what we do. Oftentimes in this world that we live in today, the society we live in, this Western society, everything's like we introduce ourselves by what we do. But in Indigenous world, we're always like, who are you? Who are your people? Where you come from? And that's who we want to know, who you are as a human being, not what you do. Later on, we'll ask you, you'll go to a native gathering, and then 4 days later, they'll go, oh, by the way, what do you do anyways? Because it's not really important. And it's like, what do you do for the people, not what you do for your job? What do you do for the people is really what they're asking. And so what's more important is who you are as opposed to what you do. And so when I work with these organizations, we start getting into like, what's your heritage, where you're from, who are your family, and lineage, and this, that way. And there's whole organizations out there now that introduce themselves in that way. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And you'll learn so much more about each other too, about the world. And so my name is Gene Tagaban. My Tlingit name is Gayao. I'm of the Duckdane Tong clan, the Raven Freshwater Sockeye clan from Hoonah, Alaska. I'm the child of a Wishkatan Eagle Shark clan from Ahwan in Juneau, Alaska. I'm Cherokee, Tlingit, and Filipino. And I tell people I'm a Cherokee Filipino. That means I like to eat my salmon with rice and cornbread. My last name is Tagaban. My father is Tlingit and Filipino. That's my Tlingit side. My last name is Tagaban, and my Filipino on that side. And the Philippines is pronounced Tagaban. And my grandfather comes from Batak. My great-grandfather comes from Ilocos Norte. And how they made it over to the States is a whole nother story. They went through Hawaii and then down to California, and then they split out. There's 4 brothers. But my father was raised in Petersburg, Alaska, and took us to Juneau, and I was raised up there. My mama is full-blood Cherokee. She was born in Jay, Oklahoma, raised in Xena, Oklahoma. But before the Trail of Tears, she traced our lineage back to a place that is now known as Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And they called the Cherokee people before that time, they called them Sloggy. And that's a traditional form of the people. And you'll find many of the tribes, the Sioux, is a Western name. Grovon, which my wife is from, is a Western name. She's actually, my wife's Aani and Nakota, and she's also Northern Italian. But my mama, she's of the Wolf clan, which makes me of the Wolf clan, and her Cherokee or Sloggy name is Week. Again, raised in Juneau, Alaska, or the original name of Juneau is called Zontekihini, the land of the Wishkitan people there. And right now, my wife and I, we live on the land of the Puyallup people here in the Pacific Northwest and the territories of the Coast Salish. And we tell people we live in the shadow of Mount Tahoma. People know it as Mount Rainier, but we call it Mount Tahoma. It's one of those things too. Have you ever heard that term, decolonization? Yeah. Part of my way of, I don't like that term, decolonization, because it's in order to decolonize, you have to see yourself colonized first and then not colonized. And that's just how the brain works. Just like using the word don't, do, and not cancel each other out. And so you see the direct command. So I say I like to re-indigenize myself. And I like each and every one of us. And part of the work that I also do is I do outdoor wilderness skills, nature skills, a healing through nature connection and tracking. And so I'm also taking all walks of life out there into the land, onto the woods, to re-indigenize ourselves, connect ourselves to that part of us that pushed to the side because we live in this Western world, this modern world. Yeah. And so, but that's me and my wife. And again, I tell my wife's highly educated. She's got a couple master's degrees. She's a retired educator. And it's one of those things I don't stand a chance in any kind of argument. We don't even call it arguments. We just call it battles. Yeah. But I still make attempts to do battle with her. But yeah. And as guys, we're going to do the best we can. We never stand a chance, but that's a whole nother story. But that's a little bit of who I am. So who are you? Who are your ancestors? Who dreamt you into existence? Even if you come from the adoption of that you've been adopted or you don't know, but there is some ancestor that dreamt you into existence. And if you go back far enough in your heritage, you are a prayer, you are a dream that has come into fruition. And sometimes that's what I need just to keep myself going. Sometimes I need that purpose to keep myself going, that I am a dream. And so I've been dreamt into existence. And I love that. And part of the reason why we're here, if you look deep enough into our belief systems, our value systems, that we're dreaming the future generation into existence, right? Yeah, because one day that's guaranteed in our lives is we will be an ancestor. That is a guarantee. Nothing else is really guaranteed in our lives, except that we will be an ancestor. Yeah. And again, that's a whole another ceremonial system that we could talk about too. But but who are you? Who dreamt you into existence? Yeah. And part of when I talked to, I gave you a land acknowledgement where I'm at. Whose lands are you on? And even if you don't know it, it's oftentimes it's just going out there and just simply saying thank you. And I was told that one of the simplest prayers and simplest acknowledgments that we could do in our lives is simply to say thank you. Yeah. It's one of those times. This one time I was traveling in China with a couple of Lakota guys, and we went to the Great Wall of China. And we told them, they said, we want to go to the place where there's not all these tourists, There are tourists walking around and people coming up to us taking pictures of us because we kind of stood out. Three long-haired Indians, and I was the shortest of the three, and so we're taller than everybody there. And so we just want to go to the place where about 5 miles that way, and you'll run into where the wall isn't kept up. And so we walked. It was a beautiful, beautiful day, and we walked and we walked and we walked. It was more like 7 miles, and then we finally got to the place where the wall was starting to crumble into the earth, and there was dirt over the wall. Trees were growing. And then we got to a point where there was a tower there and everything else. And we thought to ourselves, well, this is a good place right here. And when we meant by a good place, it's a good place that we can stop and acknowledge the ancestors of that place. And so we offered some food, dropped some tobacco, and each of us sang a song from our own traditions. And then we just started to get late, so we got another 7 miles to walk back. And so on our way out through the rocks and through the dirt that used to be the wall, and we're walking on this trail that was overgrown, suddenly we saw hundreds of lizards were on the trail, were on the side watching us walk out. And to us, what that was ancestors of that land coming out just to say hi and to acknowledge, because we acknowledged them. We took the time. We took the time to introduce our ancestors to their ancestors, to let them know this is who we walk with. This is our intentions when we walk onto the land with you, where we come. And wherever I go, it doesn't matter. I always just simply stop and say thank you. Even if I've been to a place, many, many times, I simply stop and say thank you to those who came before me, who those lands that I'm on. And I've had friends who are Scottish, and they've gone back to their lands in Scotland or Ireland, or wherever they came from. And I simply encourage them to stop and say thank you, and just take in the ancestors. These are your ancestors, and take them in. And it's been many of them, it's been a profound experience for them. And if we just simply stop and just take a moment, that's all it is, just a moment, just to simply say thank you. Make an offering. Yeah, whatever it may be. Yeah, just make that acknowledgement. So that's just one of many times that an experience like that has happened. when I've just stopped and taken time to acknowledge where I'm at, acknowledge the land. Even just, even though your house may be on the land of an indigenous peoples there, that place, even your sacred house, your house is now on that land. And oftentimes we don't just simply say it, thank you. When we walk into our house, thank you. Yeah, this is the house now, or of you. And acknowledge yourself, and simply give those thanks. And so that's all. And I'm saying all this is all part of our introductions. Part of our introductions. And we don't have to go out there to introduce ourselves, and it doesn't take that long. All we have to do is just be present. We can introduce ourselves and just like that. And it will encompass all those things I just talked about. Because we have those intelligent intentions when we're coming there. And when I say intelligent intentions, I'm saying because the boarding schools, they had good intentions. The residential schools and all that, they had good intentions according to the beliefs and values, but they sure weren't intelligent intentions. And so that's what I'm saying, use your intelligent intentions as opposed to I'm just coming with good intentions. Yeah. And so, yeah, my name's Gene Tagaban. My thinking name is Guy Yao. It's a little bit of, I've been doing this stuff here now for a while. Again, when my hair was black and thick and all those things. So, any questions so far? Or actually any wonderings that you may have for me? I mean, we're here to talk about being an ally. What does an ally mean? And one of the greatest allies, how to build allyship is being your own ally. Giving yourself, just helping yourself out as well. So any questions so far? And during this time too, again, this moment, I'm just asking you, just be aware of your own experience. When I say be aware of your own experiences, is that what's going on? What do you see? What do you hear? And what do you feel? Not only externally, as I'm talking about these things, but internally mostly. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? But and again, when I'm talking about the land, the trees, you can't help but boom, boom, boom. Your mind goes to a place there. Or when you hear voices, and it's okay that you hear voices. Yeah, we all hear voices. So we have somebody talking to ourselves. The little voice that's talking to yourself. Yeah, the little voice that said, what little voice? How do you know I have little voices talking to myself? Because our communication is always someplace. Our attention is always someplace. We're always seeing something, hearing something, or what are you feeling? And where do you hold your feelings? And oftentimes when I ask you, where do you hold your trauma, your hurts, your harms, your wounds, your pains? You put I put my hand automatically right here on my solar plexus. But also, where do you hold your joys, your happiness, your love, your compassion, your empathy? I put my hand right here as well. Yeah. So where do you hold these things? So when I say be aware of your own experience, not only experience that you see externally, but what's going on internally for you, which is the big thing. Which is the big thing. What's going on happening for you? And again, that's why be aware of your own experience. And that's all it is. Be aware of it. And if it's working for you, then great. If it's not serving you, working for you anymore, how can we adjust it? Where can we learn? Yeah. I always have this here thing I tell myself. I thought I knew, but I was wrong. Actually, there's more to it. I tell myself, I know what I know. I know what I don't know. I don't know what I know. I don't know what I don't know. I thought I knew, but I was wrong. And
Gene,
so that.
have a question. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no worries, please.
Hillary has her hand up.
Yeah,
Hillary?
because I'm one of my things. I'm a storyteller, and I'm part of the storyteller support group, and it's called On and On and On and On. And so I need, yeah, so you got to like just like shut the hell up, man, and like just give us a break here. Yeah, what's your question?
I'm just thinking about you talking about ancestors and so on. When conceptualizing that kind of thing, how far back are you thinking? I mean, I guess if I was doing my introduction, it would be to grandparents, but not much further back than that. And just interested in that kind of context to I've heard other folks talk about from other communities talking about planning for 7 generations ahead. So I'm thinking about that from a perspective of potentially Native Americans. But how far are you grounding back into the past?
Oh, thanks, hey, Hillary. Thank you for that question. Oftentimes, too, when I talk, when I speak about, think about your ancestors, and oftentimes in our modern day Western minds, we think about maybe, and you'll find that um, that happens with many people, especially our younger people. But when I talk about that too, you say the 7 generations. We think about 7 generations forward, but also I'm also thinking about 7 generations backwards, because those seven generations back then, they were already thinking about 7 generations forward, and from that 7 generations back, they're already thinking about 7 generations back and back. And so when I'm talking about I'm thinking about ancestors. I'm not thinking about singular grandma, grandpa, great grandma, great grandpas, or that. I'm thinking about great, 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 greats, 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 greats. Those who dreamt me into existence. Those who did not, don't, they had no idea what my name was, but they knew I was on my way. And that's how far back I'm thinking, and that there's those spirits are all walk with me, and I still carry that DNA in me. I still carry that spirit. I still carry that knowledge in me from them. And oftentimes too, when I've worked with non-native people too. For instance, there was a German man. He said, I come from, my ancestors were part of the Holocaust, and I just don't want to think about my ancestors. What's going on? Shoot, I wish I had my rope. Got all kinds of stuff here. I'm a musician, so I'm surrounded by instruments and drums too. But in our lineage, and I'm going to our storyline, our heritage, when it's only thinking about that part of his ancestry of the Holocaust, is only thinking about that small part of his heritage, and that's always focusing on, and is leaving out all this other part of some really cool, powerful, strong ancestors that are there, that dreamt him into existence. And that even happened with a lady. Her ancestors were slave. They were slave owners, landowners, and that's all she wanted. She thought about it, but she neglected to think about this whole other part. And I was talking with a man from he's Cuban, and he would say, "What's my ancestry?" And he goes, uh, "I'm an American." Okay, we're all Americans here. That's our nationality. We're here. But what's your heritage? Who dreamt you into existence? It says, I don't talk about that. I said, well, you're Cuban. How did your people get here? And then he started talking about how his grandparents jumped on a boat and they struggled to get over here. His great grandparents. No, it was his grandparents that struggled to get over here. And then as he started talking about that and explaining, tears started coming down his face. And he said, I've been ignoring their struggle. I've been ignoring everything about them. I've been putting them out of my mind, but they struggled, and everything they did, they dreamt me into existence. Everything they did, they dreamt that I would have a good life. And then from that point on, it says, I need to tell my children about my grandparents. And then I need to tell them about my great grandparents. And so, Hillary, when you're asking that question about when I'm talking about ancestry, I'm like going, how far back do you want to go? If you want to go back to just your grandparents or great grandparents, that's up to you. But there's so much richness that is there. Part of it too is my mother. She is a survivor of the boarding schools. When she was 6 years old, she was in Oklahoma, and they came to. Her mother died giving birth to her, and so she was raised by her grandmother. And they went to my grandmother's house in Oklahoma and said she needs to go to school now. So they took her to a boarding school in Oklahoma. And while she was in boarding school at Oklahoma, she basically she just got homesick, and she got really, really ill, and she got pneumonia. And so they sent word back to her grandmother that she's not going to make it. And so my grandmother sent two uncles to go pick her up and get her. They got her, took her back home, and my grandmother, who was a healer, healed her back to health and never sent her back. Now I share that because my mother almost didn't make it. Now, if we look back in all of our heritages, there was some place in there that your ancestor was right on that fine line of not making it. But they made it, and here you are. Here you are. And when I say that you've been dreamt into existence, because maybe you were their thought of why they have to make it. And so when I'm talking about thinking about that, and oftentimes in this country, we're in the states that I ask so many people what your heritage is. You talk to people of color or talk to Native people, we can go boom, we know, or we have an idea of what our heritage is. But when I talk to non-Native people or people, I ask them, what is your heritage? Oftentimes it's European, French, Irish, or Scottish, and yeah, I'm a mutt. I'm a mutt. Yeah. No, you're more than a mutt. Although I love mutts because we're strong, we're resilient, and mutts live a long time. But you're more than that. And to find out about who you are, and the more idea you have of who you are, who your ancestors are, you'll start breaking down walls. And you have a greater understanding, more of an appreciation for who other people are. I love heritage. I love heritage. I love learning and seeing and hearing about where other people are from and their ancestry. I love it. I love it. And in this country that in this continent that they call the United States, we call Turtle Island, or here that, they call it the melting pot. Yeah. And, but we're more than just, who are you? Who's your heritage? Who dreamt you into existence? Did that help you answer that, Hillary? Yeah. Yeah. To go back far enough. One of the things too, my uncle always told me, he says, first of all, when you step into the forest off the trail, you've crossed into that threshold of spirit. All forest, all nature is spirit. You go into the water with that mindfulness and cross into that threshold of spirit. And with that too, it was my uncle who said, when you go to the trees hold the remembering. When you go to the trees hold the remembering. If you want to remember, you go to the trees. And that's why I love doing work in nature connection, in healing through nature connection. Oftentimes I take people out. First, we have to detox from this Western civilization, the way we think, and get back connected, that intuitive part of who we are, because oftentimes we lose that part of who we are. And so oftentimes we'll just go sit in the trees and start asking questions. And have you ever heard this saying, the quality of our questions are equal to the quality of our choices? What questions do you ask yourself? When I teach tracking, for instance, when we go out there on the land, we see a set of tracks. There's sacred questions that we ask. A series of them is, what's happening here? What is this teaching me? What is this telling me? What's happening here? What is this teaching me? What is this telling me? As opposed to like, how come, why? Those are questions, but quality questions get you quality choices. So what questions are you asking yourself? And that's part of your belief systems and value systems as well. Yeah.
Gene, we did have another question in the chat.
Okay.
As a white person, should I acknowledge the harm of my ancestors? If I don't, am I dismissing their harm?
As a white person, what's your heritage, first of all? Oftentimes we say as a white person, but that's not really, first step too is just acknowledging what your heritage is. You're more than a white person. White isn't even a color. So when you say, I'm a brown person, but I'm also native, and that's who I am. People, they're black and all that, but who are you? Yeah, you're more than a white person. But should you acknowledge the harm that your ancestors have done and stuff like that? That's part of being an ally. Just come to the table and say, yeah, it's like, hey, now I want to change that. My ancestors did some jacked up stuff, and I was in a gathering recently. It was a gathering of judges, native judges, and one of those judges was a white man who was British and French and British. And as I say, oh, you come from that colonizing societies, don't you? And he just started smiling and shook his head. Yeah. And and I told him, thank you for being here. Everybody is here. We know. Thank you for being here, because he was open to tell his story and say, hey, this is who I am, and I want to change that. Yeah. We're not here to blame you, but this is an opportunity for you to tell your story. And what is your story of that? How were your ancestors involved with that? And it's okay, because you know what? First of all, we got to hear the stories. It happened. 9/11, did it happen? Yeah, just go like this. 9/11 happened. Acknowledge it. Yeah. And I just recently read this thing that we have now surpassed the number of years in this country of slave freedom as opposed to slave ownership. This land, this country is built off of slavery. Yeah. And should we ignore that? No. Let's talk about it. Let's acknowledge these things. And let's learn from it, and so that we don't repeat it. And it's okay to share your story. Just tell the story. And I hear so many times as people say, why can't your people just move on? Why do you need to because this is who we are, and this is what made us who we are today. So as a non-native person, as a European descendant, and your ancestors caused some grief and harm in this country, just like, yeah, share it. And I think it's okay. And that's also part of that healing too, that you're going through, instead of holding it in. Because if you hold it in and not share it, and you know that this is part of who you are and your history, your lineage, the more you hold it in, and it's all an energy. and it builds up, and it can cause harm to you. So it's okay to share the story. But what are you doing now? What are you doing now? What kind of ally do you want to be? And do you want to be an ally at all? And what is an ally? Let me ask you that question. What is an ally? Or your perception of what an ally is. Go ahead, you can take yourself off mute and just let's all just start spouting stuff out. Yeah, go ahead.
Alongside.
Pardon me?
Someone who walks alongside.
Yeah, we can walk together, yeah. That's like just like me being an ally I'm an ally for my wife, I'm an ally for women or LGBTQ. So instead of me walking in front, I'm going to walk as an ally and side by side. Or sometimes I'll walk behind because I got your back. Especially as a man, someone who identifies as a he and him. So it's about just playing that. Okay, where are you? Sometimes I'll tell you right now, those who are non-native or don't belong to the tribe and stuff, sometimes you just need to be quiet and just listen. Yeah. Someone who listens to understand. Yeah. Yeah. Or to learn. What else? What is an ally? Yeah, everything that your little voice is telling you right now. Yeah, those things. Speaking up no matter the setting.
Maybe an ally is somebody who like wants to do things differently than they were done in the past, or wants to approach things with a different mindset.
Yeah. First of all, I want to go back to that time. Speaking up. What was that one? Speaking up. I don't want to get back into the chats. But sometimes too, I mean, we need to take discernment on when it is time to just be quiet. Because if I'm in a group with LGBTQ or a group of women, I just need to like step back and be quiet. I can still be an ally, but sometimes being an ally is just my presence is there. My presence is there. And we got to use our intelligent discernment as well. Yeah. And when Shelby was saying too, is like, is learning. How many of you went through a pandemic? Yeah, I know. We all went through. I say that because some people still don't believe they went through a pandemic, but that's a whole nother thing. But how many of you came out of that pandemic a different person? Yeah. Because I know I did, because there's a lot of stuff that came up during the pandemic. Social justices, racism, prejudices came out, all that stuff. And I thought I knew something. But during the pandemic, it actually gave me an opportunity to step in and learn more, not only about the issues, but about myself and about what my belief systems around it are, my value systems around these things are. So it gave me an opportunity to learn. I'm always up for learning. Yeah. Yeah.
We had a hand up. Dana, do you still have a question or a comment?
No, I was just raising my hand about the pandemic thing.
Oh, got it.
Geez, I just got over COVID, man. Geez, still in the pandemic. Speak up no matter the setting. Yeah, we got to take someone who cares and shares values. Yeah, we care. Endeavoring to decenter yourself. Yeah. because oftentimes non-native people always, in this Western world, we always want to see ourselves at the center, stepping up. Someone who wants another to be well and acts accordingly, to see that's into being someone who stands by you and supports you. Yeah. And all those are like, what it takes to be being an ally and learning about it. One thing I do want to share is that there's a lot of people out there who want to be an ally so bad, so much, and they want to be so woke that they actually become worse because they're trying way too hard. Does that make sense? Like they go to these gatherings and they want to tell people, okay, this is what I know, this is who I am now, or they're just really just trying so hard they become offensive. Yeah. Chill out, slow down, ease into things. We usually find that within the younger generations. They just want to jump right into it. I mean, I was that way, lacking that patience. But just have patience, ease into it, learn about it. Mostly learn about this system here. What are your belief systems? What are your value systems? Who walks with you into the room? What are your attachments to others? One of our human needs is attachment to a group of people, to a set of beliefs, whatever it is. What are our attachments? How are we attached to others? Yeah. Just really explore what's going on here. Again, when I said be aware of your own experience, what's going on here? What's going on here? Anything else? Any other thoughts or questions? And you can ask me anything. I've been growing my hair out now since I was my early 20s.
So you gave us one example of a bad ally, or an ally who maybe gets in the way by being too much. What are the other things for us to avoid?
The white savior.
Okay.
Coming on, and thinking that, okay, I know I have all the answers. Especially we find that those who just got out of college, just got out of school, and they have all these here, they have all this energy, and they say, okay, this is what you need to do, type thing. Don't do that. Don't do that. And then when you go to a gathering, and you'll see native gatherings, and they want you to introduce yourself. One thing do not do is do not start it off with, I'm not native, but. Don't do that. We want to know who you are. We don't want to know who you are not. Yeah. We want to know who you are, who the authentic self is. Again, we want to know who you are as opposed to what you really want to do. There was a friend of mine. She went to the Lakota Nation, and she took some scientists and some professors and teachers from Iran, France, Pakistan, and brought them into the res. And they were and all these here instructors, these teachers, they all had really adverse stories about what they had to go through to get to where they're at. And when they went onto the res, and I think I can't remember, it was Lakota country, South Dakota. And they introduced themselves. They all started introducing themselves as what they did, their PhDs, their programs that they ran and everything. And the people right there immediately just put a wall up, boom, boom, boom. Guarantee you that there's out there in Indian country, so many people, they come out there, this is who I am, you need to respect me, I have a PhD in this, I run this program right there, and this is who I am. And then she told the people, those who out there said, They don't want to know what you do. They want to know who you are. And so what they started telling them, it's like who they are. This is where I came from. This is what I had to go through to get here. My family is still over there and I'm still struggling. This is what I had to struggle with. They want to know who you are. They want to know who you are. Yeah, not what you do or what you are not. Does that make sense? So much of how you how do you introduce yourself? Yeah. Gosh, there's so many other examples of what not to do. Let me see. I'm just reading this chat by Roxanne. How can I introduce myself and who I am while being authentic if I don't know anything about all the different lands that my European ancestors came from? All I'm able to tell you is that I'm 23, and me tells me when I read and research myself that doesn't feel authentic. It's something that I've always struggled with a lot in the last few years. Then don't trust the 23 in me. Who are you? Who do you feel inside of who you are? Who is the authentic self of who you are? To be honest with you, I don't want to take a 23 in me because it might tell me I'm something other than Cherokee, Clicket, and Filipino. And I've done so much work to accept who I am, man. If it tells me I'm something else, man, it's just going to, yeah, I'm just going to explode. And I've seen that happen. I've seen people take these DNA tests, they think there's something, especially Indian people, and then they find out there's something else. Yeah, and it just really, identity is a huge thing. So Roxanne, just really take some time, just to take a moment, sit with yourself and like, who are you as a human being? As a human being. And when you introduce yourself, maybe you're a mother, maybe you're a partner, maybe you love hiking, you love to cook. Yeah, I have 3 dogs. Yeah, I'm a dog dad. And that's part of my identity of who I am as well. Yeah, I'm Indian, I'm native. Yeah, but that's who I am. Yeah, and so just part of that is like work on that introduction. Maybe you don't know the land of your ancestry. And even if you took the 23andMe and you saw that, you're going, man, that doesn't feel like me though, because they're not all, that's okay. Yeah. Who are you?
Haley has her hand up and then Selby.
Sure.
Hi, thanks, Christiana. Thank you, Gene. This space today is really, really magical, and your presence is just really, 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 really wonderful. So thank you so much for being with us today. Like several of the folks here, I'm involved in what's called system of care work here in Oregon, and it's been really eye-opening in this role to look into and learn from the circles of care kind of programming that exists with some of the SAMHSA grant funded tribal initiatives. And I know, and maybe I'll speak from a place of vulnerability here, it's been a challenge for me personally to think about how to meaningfully engage our Native community partners and community members here in Lane County, Oregon, without it coming across as tokenizing, as technically the system of care work here in Oregon, we're required to make efforts to engage with our tribal partners and tribal communities in system of care work, which is definitely a beautiful model and beautiful goal. And we should always be striving to engage with all of our communities that fall within our kind of our shared community space. However, I don't know if I'm the only one that sometimes kind of gets in my head about, well, I don't want them to think that I'm just bringing them to the table because it's a box to check, right? Or that I'm engaging with them because I want something from them, right? Instead of it being about we share community together and let's be in community in a shared space. So I share all of that to say, Gene, where have you seen communities doing work well when it comes to our Native folks and our other folk and kind of shared work, right? Like shared causes, shared purposes, and bringing that all to a virtual or in-person table together. What does that look like, and what advice for us do you have to do this meaningfully?
Oh, thank you, Haley. I was just yeah, how can we like collaborate and work together, you know, and that's that you're more than just a token. You're more than just a number. You're more than just a statistic. You're more than just the, you know, so we can get the funding. You're more than just that. Yeah, and we want to, you know, you to be part of this as opposed to um, this collaboration, as opposed to just um, us working on you or those things. Yeah, and part of it too. Haley, I just wanted to say one thing too, as you were speaking, and just notice that your cadence and how you're speaking, and when you're explaining things, it was pretty rapid, you know. But then when you started asking the question, you slowed your cadence down. Yeah, even the tone went down a little bit too. Yeah, and so even when you're explaining things, I just want you to, I encourage you to just to slow it down and just pay attention to, instead of getting the information out as fast as you can and talking in that, just to slow it down. Because what happens is everything that we're doing, we're building relationship. How can we, everything we're building relationship. In Western thinking, we're always thinking about how can we get the information out there as fast as we can and explain to people what we're trying to do all the time, and that we're not trying to do anything to them, but we want to collaborate with them, as opposed to how can we share with the people how we can collaborate together, as opposed to us against them. Do you see the difference? We're building relationships with how we're speaking and with the people. Yeah, and that's just that. But part of that too is to observe like who's in the room, who walked into the room. Yeah, but that's just just an awareness to think about and how to build relationships. When I was up in Alaska just recently, I worked with an organization. It's called the Alaska Network on Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. And in Alaska, the highest rates of domestic violence and assault in the country is in Alaska, the state. And the whole organization is non-native, but they still want to get the services out there. And so part of it too is what they've done is they asked me to come on and help them and assist them. So that how can we build relationships with these communities, with these villages, with these organizations, you know, and a community with Native people, when they see a white person coming in, there's a lot of distrust. And so oftentimes it's just, how can they've asked me to come along and even teach them and train with them in culture, traditions, protocols, and those. And so I just, in fact, yeah, this last weekend I was supposed to work with them, but then I got sick, and but I've been working with them for the last 15 years, and just helping them and assisting them building relationships with community. And so and that's one organization we've worked with. And gosh, I'm trying to think of other non-native. Oh, the Wilderness Awareness School in Washington. They've asked me to come in oftentimes. As now I'm an honorary uncle. I was just a participant. Now I'm probably an honorary elder. You know, I've been with them for a while, and they've always asked me to come in as a just to sit with them, and just to observe. But the thing is, when you said earlier you're going to be a little vulnerable, right? Be vulnerable.
Gene is frozen for me. For others? Okay. I know it has caught up, so we'll hope that it catches up in a minute. Okay, I sent Gene a chat, but
am I back?
There you go. There you are. Thank you. You froze pretty much when you started speaking, so maybe you could go back to the start of that.
Okay. I was wondering because I think I was going in and out there too, anyways, one of the things too is you started out with that question was talking about being vulnerable, and how many of you are familiar with Brene Brown? I love Brene Brown, and what she does, it talks about vulnerability, shame, and all that stuff. But when she talks about vulnerability, in order to be vulnerable, you need to have courage. Courage and vulnerability go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So part of that is building that relationships too, is being vulnerable. And it's okay to be vulnerable. Because part of that too is like you're learning here. You're reaching out. And that's why I say take a look at what's going on internally here. Be aware of your own experience. Not only your own experience as a human being, but own experience as a department. Your own experience as an organization. What's going on? What's happening? What's your experience here? What's going on? Because the organization is an entity itself. And so it's okay to be vulnerable. Let's try this. And even tell the other organizations or the tribes or whoever you're working with that, hey, we're trying to be a little vulnerable here. We're trying to learn here. Can you help us? Can you help us so that we can help you? We want to learn here. How can we do this better? And oftentimes, again, as Hillary said, things not to do is like going in there and say, we're going to tell you what to do. That would shut, put up walls and all those things. And so it's just actually just go up. What do you need? What are your needs? What are your wants? Yeah. What stops you from getting what you want? And, and it's just being authentic and having that vulnerability. Does that make sense? Yeah. And having the courage to be vulnerable.
It does. Thank you, Gene. I appreciate the feedback and guidance. I truly do. Thank you.
Selby?
I think my question piggies back on Haley's, and I think it's also reflective in the comment that Danny just put in the chat, but it was along that same lines of the first introduction to meet those partners. And I was thinking about how at my organization, there used to be somebody who was hired here specifically. Their formal role within the agency was to be a tribal liaison. And since we worked together in the same office, we were able to build relationship together, and we would have a monthly calendar invite where we spent as much time talking about rock collecting and our families and how things were going, and really not even addressing work concerns. And so we had a space together where we could build that relationship. But for example, since that person has left that role now, when I think about reaching out to create relationships or be allies with local tribes in the region, it feels more challenging, I think, for two reasons. One, as Haley hinted at, it's mandated for us. So we're being spurred partially to do the reach out through a mandate. Even though we may have our own personal intentions and desires, very sincerely to do that reach out, there is also this kind of formal or official pressure or impetus to it. And then I feel, and then the reach out is, as people might call it, a cold call. Like I'm showing up on the doorstep, and I may have very personal, sincere intentions. I will carry the words you have shared with us today, forward with me. But still, I'm an external person approaching some other people in my community, and just kind of even digging a little bit more in depth about that first time that we are hoping to introduce ourselves. And you've been focusing on this theme of introduction to an extent, and so that very first time to somebody completely new to us, how we introduce ourselves in a way that I think mirrors the values that you're telling us about here today. But recognizing the challenge of doing that as a new person, and with this kind of external mandated pressure for engagement, and that we are all, not only is it mandated and external, but we're also mandated to report on it, right? Again, this of like, well, the authority saying, we told you to do this thing, now have you done it or not? And so I think we can be pulled in a lot of these really confusing directions, even though as individuals, as I said, I think we'll come in with a very personal intention, or how you said, take your learnings with us when we go.
And not only that, you're dealing with the people who have gone through a lot of trauma, hurt, harms, wounds, and as well. And so, when you're trying to do that with traumatized people, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and so that's so much of what I'm saying is to, again, in this work that you do as well, you will get triggered. You will get triggered. And so that's it's so, and part of it too is being important on knowing who you are. You will have successes, and then there'll be parts where you will fail miserably. And to take that feedback, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. I tell myself that all the time. There's no such thing as failure, only feedback. And so when I'm working with somebody, and I've failed miserably many, many times, because a lot of the work that I do a lot of deep healing work. I do a lot of deep wellness work. And I work with childhood traumas and those who have been hurt, PTSDs, and still carrying those things. And so it's a learning process along the way. And then there's those you're going to reach out to, and you have your sexes, and there's those who they're just going to sit with you for a long time, because what can I do? What else can I do? How can I reach this person? How can I reach this family? How can I reach this organization? Don't they know who I am? Don't they know my intentions? We'll always be questioning ourselves. And so that's part of it. At the end of the day, you really need to take care of yourself. You can't carry this stuff with you. At the end of the day, when you reintroduce yourself to your family, shake it off, shake yourself off, so you don't carry this into your house with you. One thing too I want to say is that I saw a couple men on here, but women, my hands go up to you. And oftentimes it's the women who are always carrying the load, the stresses in the communities, in the house, the homes, wherever you are. Yeah. take care of yourselves. And so what I'm talking about, what Shelby was talking about, yes, I'm talking about your introductions. I'm talking about your heritage. I'm talking about all this stuff. Why I'm sharing this is because get to know who you are as a human being. Because the more you get to know yourself as a human being, you can start relating to others as a human being, as opposed to just a client. When I work with somebody, I don't call them clients, I call them relatives. And I don't call myself a therapist or a counselor or a thing. I call myself a tracker, because I'm always tracking what's going on. You'll have your successes or you'll have your failures. Yeah. But I want to keep at it, but mostly take care of yourself. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be good for anybody else. Get to know who you are. Yeah. What are your skills, gifts, and talents? Because you might be talented, you might have a gift, you might be able to reach out to this person, but maybe I know somebody else that can reach out to you as opposed to me. Maybe I'm not the one. Especially as a man, I go into many places when I'm working with women, young women. As soon as they see me, I trigger them. And I got to recognize those things. As a light-skinned, white-skinned person, you may trigger somebody. And just to recognize that. But take care of your spirit. Take care of the integrity of who you are. And in taking care of yourself, that is one of the best ways to reach out to others. Because you are more than an organization. You're more than just a position. You're more than just a title. And you're trying to, and working on, you want to help, assist, and heal people, heal families, heal, you want to, yeah. Yeah, and I wish I had like more of a specific answer, like step A, step 1, 2, 3, or 4, but I don't, because each situation is a different situation. Each moment is a different moment. And that's all part of being an ally too. Yeah, just learning. I hope that helped you a little bit, Shelby, but thank you for answering, and that, and Haley, thank you for that. But we're coming to a close here to the end of this too, and thank you for each of you, of your presence. Thank you for being here. And I hope in this discussion, which I love discussions, I love questions, that I was able to assist you somehow, some way, even if it's just a little bit. And striving to be that ally. Because it all starts with being an ally for yourself, and then it all just kind of like just that concentric ring goes out. Yeah. And it starts right there. Any other wonderings or any other questions?
I just had one about if folks had something that comes to them after the fact, if they might be able to reach out to you, or if you'd prefer that they reach out to the Native Wellness Institute directly, or just if you were open to that.
I'm totally open to it. Yeah.
Okay,
you can reach out to the Native Wellness Institute, or my email is spelled out as onecrazyraven@gmail.com.
Okay. I'm going to attempt to put it in the chat, and then we can correct my spelling if I misspell.
It's ONE Crazy Raven.
Okay.
@gmail.com.
Thank you.
But yeah, and again, any other questions or wonderings, I hope I was able to assist you in some way, somehow. Just again, all we had was just a moment, and that's all it was. Yeah. And if you see me down the road someplace, please, just say hi. Say, I met you on this, and just say hi. Yeah. Because I'm always someplace, somewhere. Are you in Washington? Where are you? Where are you guys? Where are you located at? Where are you? You're in
I would
Oregon?
say we're all in, like I'm in Oregon. I think we're all in different places. So a few of us in Corvallis, a few of us in the Portland and Tri-Counties area, and all over the state of Oregon and probably beyond.
Oh, right on. Yeah. I'm in Oregon quite a bit, actually. As a Native Wellness Institute, we're based out of Gresham. And so, yeah. And we're doing some trainings coming up. We're going to be at a facility called Barbie's Village. Take a look at the Native Wellness Institute and take a look at our trainings that we offer. And each and every one of you are welcome to attend any of the trainings, any of the gatherings there. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Any closing wonderings for Gene?
I would like to encourage each of you too. Is like if you have an opportunity to go, if you're working with a community or whatever, there's a gathering, just go and attend the gathering, and part of it too is to be of service. And if you have some time, just grab a trash can, pick up plates, pick up trash and all that. Help serve food and those things too. And then that way, when the people see you, they'll see you in service, and that's a great way. Oftentimes, I tell people just to how to be seen, and the people will recognize you. Yeah. So any last things?
I just genuinely want to thank you for being here and just sharing parts of your story and encouraging us to show up as our authentic selves in the work that we do every day with folks. So I just greatly appreciate your time. Lots of love in the chat too, coming your way too, Gene.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your presence as well. So with that, just again, as we open it up, acknowledging our ancestors, the land of our ancestors, or the sunrises and sunsets, and again, just take yourself back to that place, back to that moment, capture those moments. Because yeah, because sometimes when things get hard, that's, take yourself there, take your presence there, take your spirit to those places. Yeah. Be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself. Yeah. Yeah. And just to learn to acknowledge yourself of who you are and that acceptance. And that will go out to the others around you as well. So until then, take care and be well. See you guys down the road.
Thank you again. Thanks, everyone.
All right.